Hello, welcome to Helpline Extra, where we dive a little deeper into some of the topics that come up all the time on Helpline. I'm Yumi Steins. Chris Minogue is our expert. She's a mothercraft nurse with over 30 years of experience, which is both impressive and slightly exhausting. Oh my goodness. Now, before we start this deep dive, just a quick note, this advice is not intended to take the place of specialist medical advice, okay? So if you're worried or concerned about your child, please see your GP. Now, Chris, I wanted to hit you up with a question that definitely has affected me in years past. It's when you're having that coveted overseas trip, maybe to see relatives or for a holiday, which means, yay, an adventure and a holiday, but also a huge plane flight.
Yes.
It can be so tricky, right? So what's the most important thing to consider when taking a baby on an overseas trip?
Okay, so when taking a baby on an overseas trip, the first thing you need to know is that you can do it. And there's not a flight that has been stopped because a baby cried. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, even if they do cry, the bigger the plane, the less people hear it because there's more engine sound. So, you know, I think if we can decrease the anxiety, we're actually going to enjoy the experience. But we do have to put some forethought into it. So the things that I would consider is what time the flight was going. Now, from Australia, if we were going to Europe, as an example, I would fly all in the one direction and I wouldn't break the flight up because the flights tend to leave in the night and the baby is much better on the night flights. So the more night flights you can do, the better the baby will be able to travel.
But when you say don't break up the flight, you usually do have to stop in Dubai.
What I mean is don't stop for a couple of days.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so you go here to Dubai, Dubai to London.
Okay.
And do it all in the one go, and the baby will do much better. On the way back, we break it by 1 day, and it will delay the jet lag. So it will shorten the jet lag, and the baby recovers much better. And again, I use the same rule, as many night flights as I can, that I can control.
Yeah. So sorry, just to repeat, on the way home, stop somewhere for a day.
Stop somewhere for a day.
Okay, all right, then that's
Just
okay.
for 1 day. And it'll make all the difference to the jet lag.
I love that because I'm going to get my hair done in Bangkok or something.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that feasible? Let's
Or a
hope
camel
so.
ride in Dubai. So,
Okay, all right, good. Sorry.
so yeah, so that's one thing to consider.
Yep.
The second really important thing to consider, and this is not so much the flight, but when you consider travelling, is that you need a space for that baby to be in. Because often when we go on holidays, we go, oh, let's stay at a hotel, and we're all in one room, and then everything falls apart. Okay, so consider a 1-bedroom so that the baby has a space to be able to sleep well in its pattern of development, wherever you're up to, and you will have a much, much better holiday. So don't all just get into one hotel room, because when that baby goes to bed at 7 o'clock, everybody will be sitting in the dark very quietly. So if we put a little bit of thought into it, it really will be a holiday.
Money as well, though, for that extra room, isn't it?
That is, but if you can consider that before you go, I think you're going to end up in a much better place.
Okay, what about this? This is what I've heard, is that you should, if you're still breastfeeding, breastfeed the baby on takeoff and on landing.
That's true. In time past, we used to get our babies to suck on takeoff and landing. But with the modern planes these days, we don't need to do that. They're pressurised to sea level, and the air quality is much better. So nowadays, they take a much slower and lower takeoff. So it almost feels like you're not sure if they've gone up in the air.
Yeah.
And that's to help with the pressurisation of the cabin. And so we, as travelling people, do much better with our ear pressure.
I've noticed that, but I didn't know that's why.
So it's not as necessary. It's certainly helpful if you've got a little baby and they're in that seat belt and they're getting a bit squirmy. If you can pop them on the breast or give them their dummy, it's more to calm them down. It's not necessary for ear pressure. But my other advice, especially 6-month-olds and 9-month-olds, make sure you have their ears checked before you go, because you may not know that they've got a bit of an ear infection, and that will affect any flight you take. Doesn't matter. So having their ears checked before you go, but technically don't have to feed them on takeoff and landing, but it's just helpful. And it contains them in one spot.
Okay, I like to be very prepared. I think most parents do, but
Yep.
particularly before a big trip. What supplies can you ask an airline to provide for you, and what should you bring on board yourself for the flights?
I think I go completely prepared.
Right.
So I assume I'm taking everything and they're providing nothing, but they do provide food. So if they know there's an infant on board, they will provide infant food for them, and a toddler, usually you would order a child's meal for them because they have a lot more variety on it. But I actually assume I'm taking everything. In fact, for every flight I take, depending on the age of the child, I pack one meal that I know they'll eat, because out will come the airline food and that child will look at it and go, no, I'm not eating any of that.
And then a minute later, I'm starving.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So I just pack something that I know my child will eat. One snack box, one sandwich, for instance.
Yep.
And if all else fails, that's what they eat. So I go prepared. I take my nappies. I'm very finicky. I put them in little spaces, because the worst thing is that you're pulling something down out of your luggage area. So I've got it in a backpack. I've got my nappies and my wipes and my change mat all in one space. I've got my food things in one space. And I think the difficulty at the moment is the whole thing about how much fluid you can take on a plane. And for those parents who might be preparing a bottle on plane, you don't need to take the fluid on, because they have bottled water and boiling water on the flight. So you can always ask for bottled water, then put your baby powder in, shake it and feed your baby.
They're quite kind about
They
that,
are. They
actually.
are very accommodating to what a baby needs. They're trying to make it as comfortable as possible.
Yeah.
So I take things like their bottles, I calculate how many bottles they might need, a couple of new toys that they haven't seen just to distract them.
Oh, I've heard that's a great idea.
So something they haven't seen and played with.
Yep.
And for those little babies going into the bassinet, so taking those new covers that fit over the bassinet to darken the area will definitely get them sleeping much better for much longer on the flight. So those bright lights sit over those bassinet
they do.
areas. So something to cover over, and they've got great little things now that you can cover over. That's also really helpful on a flight.
One more thing that I would add into that list of things
Yes.
to take is a fresh change of clothes for yourself.
You can do. I never have.
Oh, really?
No.
I always end up so gross. I'm always like vomited
I just
on,
wear
or-
black from head to toe.
At the end, I'm like, I'm peeling this off. I'm putting something fresh on.
I'm a minimalist. I get on a plane with a bag and a book. So with a baby, I get on with a backpack and a baby.
Yeah, right.
So you are right. If you're vomited on in the first hour, a fresh T-shirt to put on. But I wouldn't take a whole outfit, just a T-shirt.
Just a really long T-shirt.
Yeah,
could be a
it goes
dress.
down to here.
I love your advice, Chris. It's so helpful and so reassuring. Thank you so much.
That's a pleasure.
I'm Yumi Steins. We'll see you next time.